So I had the great pleasure of working with Sean Payton for 1 year. He sat on these chairs and joined me most Mondays during the football season. And I've said before, I've never learned more about football, and that is no knock on any previous guest I've had, but it was really, for me, I'm a curious football fan like many of you. I've never learned more football in my life from the conversations, the dinners, the coffees, the moments on the air and off than I did with Sean Payton. And he took over a mess in Denver. And Jarrett Bell, an excellent columnist and reporter for USA Today, talked to him yesterday, and Sean Payton this is so Sean, it's great. He unloaded on the situation he took over. Let me throw up a couple of the quotes. It's so authentic. He said, it might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. There's 20 dirty hands for what was allowed, tolerated in this frickin' training rooms, the meeting rooms, the offense. I don't know Hackett. A lot of people had dirt on their hands. It wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. This BS that he hit a wall, shoot. They couldn't get a play in. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties on both sides of the football. Sean Payton continued. It doesn't happen often where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happened here. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much blanking time trying to win the offseason. The PR, the pomp, the circumstance, marching people around and all this stuff. Everything I heard about last season, we're doing the opposite. He continued on defending his quarterback, Russell Wilson. This wasn't his fault. This was the parents who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination on the head coach who was here, the GM, the president, and everybody else who watched it all happen. It's smoldering. I can feel the heat. I absolutely love Sean Payton and the confrontation to it. He's flawed. He's right. Nothing he said was incorrect. There's no BS. There's no waffling. It's Pulp Fiction. They got a mess on their hands, and they called in the wolf. If you want to fix a culture, you got to nuke the old one. This is not a remodel, a tweak here and a tweak there. It's a total rebuild. Hackett was completely over his skis, and the GM from that team is still there. This may have been strategic. But the older I get, the more I like this. We live in a world now where the mob is constantly seeking an apology. People are easily offended. Yes, actions do offend me. Words rarely do. Dana White said, shove it. Right in the middle of COVID. I'm going to lease an island. Don't like it? Don't watch. It's why, one of the many reasons I'm going to another UFC fight this weekend. He's a man of action. Flawed, imperfect, but doesn't cower when he gets criticized. Deion Sanders, I said it a couple of weeks ago. Not everybody has to blow up a football program like him, but it is a way to do it. Deion Sanders walked in and said, there's the door. Most of you stink. We're blowing this puppy up. You're bad and have been for a decade. You know what? Dana White, Deion Sanders are not perfect. They've made mistakes. Welcome to being human. I love this from Sean Payton. If you're easily offended in the NFL, he stepped on toes. Whose toes? Hackett was completely over his skis, and nothing he said was untrue. I love it. And something to think about. And I've heard this from coaches for years. Lane Kiffin and I had this conversation 8-10 years ago. The more money in sports, and now the Saudis are in, they're offering soccer players $1 billion a year to play. $1 billion. A B. The more money in sports that is granted, given, furnished, and paid, the more production and results are demanded, and more urgently. It used to be as a college football coach, you got 3 years guaranteed, and if you got fired before the contract ran out, the media was outraged. Now if you go to a USC, and I'm talking college, and LSU, got to be around that playoff by year 2, or you get ripped. And boosters start complaining, and the AD has no choice but to listen. And in pro sports, Billionaires used to be worth $400 million, maybe $8. Now they're worth $20 billion. Rounding errors, $30, $40 million coaching contracts are simply rounding errors. They write them off. They get you out the door. Sean Payton has to win, and he's got to win urgently. He doesn't get a warm-up year. He's got to completely nuke this mess, and I love it. The more money, the more things are demanded, the less time you have to fix it. Dion knows it. Dana White knew it. Sean Payton knows it. And you know what? Sean's got what we do have down here. I spent a week in Canada. They are lovely people. Not much of an edge. We've got an edge. Our stars have an edge. They have it in Hollywood. They have it in sports. They have it in tech. They got it in Wall Street. We got Musk and Zuckerberg want to fight each other. Whatever. It's us. I love this. Confrontation, head on, make people uncomfortable. Don't apologize. Don't be consumed if you offend people at every turn. Nobody's perfect. They make mistakes. Full speed ahead, and the winner will be the Broncos locker room, the Bronco fans, and the people who cover them. This is the Sean Payton I went to dinner with. I love it. Unleashing to Jarrett Bell, who's on the show later. So, as we go into another football season, and I know sometimes I'm viewed, you think I picked on Baker Mayfield. I was right. But be that as it may, you felt I picked on Johnny Manziel. And a lot of you feel like last week, man, you were really tough on Justin Fields. He's 5-20. What do you want me to do? We're going into year 3. But Aaron Rodgers is different because Aaron Rodgers is great. And about 7-8 years ago, I started saying I don't like his body language. I hear things in the building. I've been doing this for a long time. And I started about a 7-year journey on, I like Aaron a lot. He's great. I'd vote him in for the Hall of Fame. But some of his problems, some of his failures are on Aaron, and nobody wants to say it. The rest of the media have come around, I think, to piggyback on many of my comments. But I am a believer in redemption. I am a believer that people can change, and sometimes they need a new environment. And I got tired of Aaron in Green Bay, constantly droning on about retirement, not being engaged in the offseason, going to a darkness retreat, then shocked when he came out, didn't give the GM an answer on what he wanted to do, and they moved off him. I got tired of that, Aaron. That said, I still always liked him more than Favre. He's smart. There's a coolness about him. I'm not cool. Maybe I look up to cool people. But I got tired of him in Green Bay. But Aaron Rodgers did something, and it's not a small thing. He took a $35 million pay reduction this week for the Jets. Folks, that's not a shave. That's a brand pivot. Okay? That is a realignment of your priorities. That is saying, I want to win. Brady did it. Breeze did it later. That is saying, I want to win games. I'm going to sacrifice. I made a bunch of money. I've never seen an owner give back $35 million in any sport. They fight for every dollar. I think it's incredibly thoughtful, unselfish, and frankly, it does help you win more. You can get a couple more players. I know he's rich. I've seen a lot of rich people. They don't give money back. Sure as hell don't give $35 million back. Not in my lifetime. And I still have my issues with the Jets. They have an impulsive ownership group. I have questions about the O-line. A lot of their good young players are good young players. The division's brutal. The AFC's a monster. There's stuff I worry about. I do think Saleh's great, but he is a defensive coach. It's an offensive league. But this is Aaron looking in the mirror and saying, I probably was a little disengaged in Green Bay with the young players. He leans into all the young Jets, saying, I kind of droned on about retirement. Aaron now doesn't want to talk about retirement. Aaron saying, I did take the most money. That's not exactly the way to win. Aaron saying, I'll give some back. I like this, Aaron. Didn't always love him in Green Bay. Admired his talent. Didn't always like him as a leader. Some people need a new environment. Some people need a new change. Green Bay doesn't have an owner. There's not a lot to do. You can't go to the grocery store. It's different. It's not all easy. New York is tough, but if you win, they love you. I don't need to question his motivation. I don't care what his motivation is. I'm not interested in his motivation. Credit where credit is due. This is not a shave. It's a brand pivot. It's a realignment of priorities. It matters a lot. I like this, Aaron. How about that? We don't need to drone on, speaking of droning on, about the Jets much anymore. I'd like to see some actual W's for the first time in 11 years. But this is not a little thing. It's not little. Do not think it's little. I've been covering sports for 30 years. I've never seen anybody give back $35 million. Owners don't do it. They don't. They always talk about players being loyal and players winning. All right, write me a check for $35 million. Captain Stubing. Yeah, they don't, ever, under any circumstances. So I like it a lot.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.